I was young, I was trying things out, experimenting, you could say, with the benefit of hindsight. I'd worked my way through all the optics in the pub and found that whiskey made me ill and Bacardi made me horny. I smoked a bit of dope, dropped a bit of acid, and I felt a lot more grown up than 2 litres of Diamond White and a packet of 10 Lambert and Butler shared between twilight and darkness in the park. Britpop passed me by, as did the Spice Girls. Techno was my thing, a fast and heavy beat that pounded everything else out of my aching head. Rapid, repetitive dancing made me sweaty and exhausted and free. I tried a crew cut, but in '96 I wore my hair long and blonde. When I was out, I tied it into a ponytail. I tried sex, and I thought it was good, but dancing was better. It involved more people, it lasted longer, and it didn't get all moody on me. I was thin back then, entirely a product of youth and clubbing. I wore a lot of white and a lot of crop tops, which my dad and my brothers didn't appreciate. They didn't appreciate me having both my ears pierced either, and they let me know. 2 boys and 1 I'm not sure about, is how my dad spoke of his sons. The sons he was sure about held me down and forced the hoops out of my ears every few days until they got bored. They got bored because I bought replacements and forced them into raw earlobes that were going to wear whatever I wanted. And 2 things saved me from further skirmishes. The first is that I was overtly heterosexual, in so much as I was 18 and quite obviously shagging whenever I got the chance. The second is football. We always had that in common, Dad and my brothers, Mum too, a season ticket holder at Charlton Athletic. It was 1996. There were some big days in that year. 11th of May, FA Cup final. Man United won, Liverpool 0. Eric Cantona scored. And although I wouldn't be so crude as to say so did I, there was a girl called Leslie that was really friendly that night. Liverpool wore shit Armani suits. 20th of May, 3 Lions was released. The song by Baddiel, Skinner and the Lightning Seeds. Soundtrack to that summer and the last. Soundtrack to my life. You'll see. 22nd of May, Juventus beat Ajax to win the European Cup. Juventus wore cool Armani suits. The Italians did Italian in a way that Scousers could only aspire to. 24th of May, I wasn't Italian, but I wanted to be cool. I wanted to stand out, in clubs most of all, where I felt most at home. So I had my trim little belly button pierced, with a discreet silver hoop, to be replaced, I thought, with a sparkling fake diamond in just a few weeks. 26th of May, 3 Lions went to number 1. It was a Sunday. I rolled in at 4 a.m. and crashed out on the sofa. At 8 a.m, my dad saw me asleep and saw my offensive new piercing. Done to wind him up, to let his mates take the mick out of him forever, to shame him because his 3rd born was queer, he said, or worse. He wondered out loud. His out loud wondering was spat with venom and driven home with force, and the buckle end of his belt. My brothers held my mum back, saying, "We don't know what it is anymore, Dad's sorting it out." And the irony was that it wasn't even gay. On the 8th of June 1996, the Football European Championship started with an opening ceremony at Wembley and a rather disappointing 1-1 draw with Switzerland. The swelling of my face had gone down enough for me to drink without a straw. I could have watched the game at home, but as my brothers had been keeping Dad amused by referring to my release from hospital with, "It's coming home, it's coming home," I thought not. I called in to pick up some clothes and then slept on a cousin's couch in North London for a while. A week later, on the 15th of June, England played Scotland. I was well enough to go to the pub, alone, because it wasn't my cousin's kind of thing. "Can I sit here, mate?" a man of around 20 asked me as the pub filled to the brim. He was another stranger in this part of town, Tony, from Nottingham. I knew that because we got chatting during the nervous prelude to the game. He supported Notts County and had been in London for just 6 weeks with a new job. He had the cheek to laugh about Charlton Athletic. And I almost laughed with him, except my face was still sore and I wasn't sure what to make of him. Shearer scored, the Scots missed a penalty, and then Gazza wrapped up a 2-0 win with a piece of football genius. Tony and I sat and stood and punched the air and hugged and sang along at the end with the whole pub and the crowd at Wembley, with Baddiel and Skinner, and with relief. Imagine if we'd lost! That song became the song about football again. And later that night, I cried with the happiness of the day and with relief at that too. On Monday the 18th of June, Tony and I were wondering how to face the rest of the week. England had just played Holland off the face of the planet. It was almost as unlikely, and that's how it seemed. Charlton winning the league was less likely than 4-1, Tony said. Notts County winning a game was less likely than 4-1, I retaliated. You getting drinks in is less likely than Alan Shearer flying to the moon, I dare say, Tony smiled. So we stayed for my round, and then his, outlasting the sensible post-match masses that had gone to bed to be fit for a working Tuesday. I've been meaning to ask, Tony said in the street at midnight. How did you get beaten up? I hope you're not some kind of a hooligan, because we seem to be a winning mix as far as the football's concerned, he said. I've never had a fight in my life. Well, we won't start now, eh? Tony suggested. I just ran into some people who didn't like the way I looked. Bastards, Tony observed. I'll be seeing you on Saturday then. Saturday the 22nd of June 1996 was an emotional day. Quarter-finals against Spain, 0-0 draw, Spain unlucky to have a goal disallowed and then extra time on penalties. It was tense and thirsty, but I was feeling better and feeling like I belonged in the world once again. When Stuart Pearce scored his penalty and roared his deliverance from the memory of missing one at the 1990 World Cup, the whole pub erupted. Tony too. But I sat and thought about how a life had been changed in a moment. It had taken Stuart Pearce, nicknamed Psycho, 6 years to slay his dragons. He couldn't change the past, but it no longer defined him. And I wondered how long it would take me to do the same. I got a little drunk. I knocked someone's drink over, bought them another one, and Tony was there to make sure the apology was accepted with good grace. I was grateful for that. For the Wednesday night that followed, 26th of June 1996, we decided the semi-final against Germany might best be enjoyed from the safety of Tony's flat in Camden Town. We ate pizza and crisps before the game and had accumulated a stack of beer. French, under the circumstances. Should it be another penalty shootout? It was. You know the result. England played well, Gazza was inches away from a golden goal, but Gareth Southgate missed a penalty, and football did not come home. Tony sat back again after a minute with his head in his hands. Like him and millions of others, I felt bereft and rested my head on his shoulder. We had danced and shouted and sworn at the TV. What are we going to do now? He asked. I don't know, I said. This is like the end of an all-night rave that lasted for weeks. You're left tired and sweaty and squinting at the light, but you're still buzzing from the noise and the excitement and sharing with so many other people who may just disappear into the night, but who know, like you know, that the experience will stay with them for a long time yet. Yes, said Tony. Isn't that when you cop off with someone? He said, so it doesn't all end, so you don't just disappear into the night alone. Yeah, I said, but it's only... I finished the sentence in my head. It was hard to make sense of it. I wouldn't have got the words out anyway, because Tony kissed me. The first time I'd kissed a man, and if I'm honest, the first time I'd even thought about it. I felt ashamed at first, and I recoiled, Dad's words echoing along with the sound of his belt buckle on my skull. But then I remembered Stuart Pearce, and as the night progressed, I felt a bit like Stuart Pearce, At one point, I'm pretty sure I roared like Stuart Pearce too. And in 2018, it was there again. That song, those feelings, excitement, shame, relief. A World Cup this time, another summer, a good one at that. New, significant dates. Of course, it was now Mr. Southgate, and its coming home was preceded by a hashtag, but there were other similarities. On the 18th of June, England were drawing their first game of the tournament, 1-1 with Tunisia this time, except this time a late winner meant we started well. On June the 24th, I had the elation of England winning 5-0 by half-time against Panama. The second half was a more muted affair, partly because my mum called to say that Dad had just died. He'd been ill for a while. The game against Belgium was an irrelevance in the tournament and in my life. I was back in '96 again for a while, the excitement of the football tempered by an underlying sense of shame. I'd not seen Dad in all the years since, and I don't think he minded that at all. Mum had tried a reconciliation, but Dad wasn't sorry and I wasn't apologetic about being the man I had become. And through all of this, Tony was my rock. Absorbent when I needed a cry, patient when I rambled, understanding of my decisions. On the 3rd of July 2018, England played Colombia on the evening of my dad's funeral. It was a long affair on a hot day, and late into the night, England won a penalty shootout. 22 years of pain were soothed for Gareth Southgate in a way, and in a way, they were for me too. You see, football didn't come home in 2018, but I did. My belly piercing has long since healed, and I'm too old and fat now to consider a reprise. But I wore a diamond earring at my dad's funeral that day, not for show or effect. I just wanted to show him what it took me 22 years to work out. My sparkle is stronger than his shame. And as I'm here telling you about it, you can probably guess the thing about my sparkle. At last I feel it's coming home.